Taken captive, the queen offered my freedom if I married her widowed daughter. No choice left. As a young human explorer, he had traveled far beyond the familiar planets of the Sol system, visiting worlds that most humans only read about in history books. Yet nothing in his life had prepared him for the world he was about to encounter, a world that shimmered with colors no human eye had named and teemed with life that moved in ways both beautiful and dangerous. He stepped off the landing shuttle onto the surface of Vierlia, a planet orbiting a distant star in the Epsilon Eridani system. The ground beneath him glowed faintly, a soft turquoise light pulsing like the heartbeat of the planet itself. Towering crystalline trees stretched into the sky, their branches twisting and curving like dancers frozen in mid-motion. The air smelled faintly sweet, yet carried a sharp electric tang. "Stay focused, Elias," he whispered to himself, adjusting the straps on his exploration pack. His mission was simple in theory: establish diplomatic contact with the ruling council of Vierlia. In practice, it was dangerous. Humans were rare in this region, and alien species tended to be suspicious of outsiders. A hovercar descended from the glowing city above, moving silently like a shadow. Its surface reflected the colors of the forest around it, almost as if it were alive. A panel opened and a being stepped out. Elias froze. The creature was taller than any human, its skin a shimmering silver with hints of violet. Its eyes glowed softly, not with malice, but with an intelligence that made Elias' stomach tighten. "You are Elias of Earth," the being said, its voice melodic but firm. "You are expected." Before he could respond, the creature gestured, and a beam of light enveloped him. The world tilted, and he felt himself lifted off the ground. Panic surged, but he quickly realized struggling would be useless. Within seconds, he was inside a hover chamber aboard a craft that moved faster than anything he had ever seen. The craft descended into the heart of Vierlia's capital city, a metropolis floating above the surface. The buildings were crystalline towers, twisting like ribbons of glass, connected by glowing bridges and pulsing energy lines. The air was filled with strange music, soft harmonics that seemed to resonate with Elias' chest. It was beautiful, but it felt alien in every way. He was brought before the ruler of Vierlia herself, Queen Aravel. She sat on a throne of polished crystal, her long, flowing robes shimmering with patterns that seemed to shift and move on their own. Her presence was commanding, yet not cruel. Elias felt a mixture of awe and fear. "Elias of Earth," she said, her voice deep and resonant. "You have entered our world without full understanding, yet you carry the curiosity of your kind, and for that you are interesting." Elias swallowed hard. "I came in peace," he said. "I only wish to learn about your people, your technology, and your culture. I mean no harm." The queen studied him for a long moment. Then unexpectedly she smiled, a small, knowing curve of her lips. "You are bold," she said. "But boldness is not always rewarded with freedom." She paused. "However, I may offer you a choice, a path to liberty, though it is not without its cost." Elias' heart raced. He had prepared for negotiations, for diplomacy, even for danger, but not for this. I will do whatever is needed," he said cautiously. Queen Aravel's eyes glowed softly. "You will marry my daughter, Princess Liara. She is widowed, a diplomat in her own right, and capable of leading many. If you accept this union, your freedom will be granted. Refuse, and you will remain my guest indefinitely." Elias staggered backward, the words almost too strange to comprehend. Marry a princess of an alien world? He barely knew anything about her or her people. And yet there seemed to be no room for negotiation. The queen's tone was final, her authority absolute. I don't know if I can do that," he stammered. "I am human, my life is different, my people are different." "Exactly," the queen replied. "And that is why this alliance is valuable. Humans possess qualities that even our species admire: resilience, courage, creativity, and empathy, traits that in times of uncertainty may tip the balance between survival and ruin." Elias realized he was trapped not by chains, but by circumstance. There was no escape. The city was heavily guarded, the queen's authority unchallenged. Even if he ran, the planet itself was alien, its forests and cities unfamiliar and dangerous. After a long silence, he nodded. I will accept," he said, the words tasting strange on his tongue. It was not consent born of desire, but of necessity. Survival sometimes required compromise, and compromise often felt like surrender. The queen's smile widened. "Wise," she said. And practical, you will meet Princess Liara tomorrow at dawn. Until then, you will remain in my guest chambers. Observe, learn, and rest. The chambers were unlike anything Elias had ever seen. Walls of translucent crystal glowed faintly, and the floor was soft beneath his feet, almost like walking on air. Strange plants floated in midair, suspended by energy fields, and small holographic projections danced along the walls, showing scenes of Virelia's history, culture, and achievements. As he wandered the room, Elias could not shake a sense of unease. He was a stranger in a world far beyond his comprehension, caught in a game whose rules he did not fully understand. And yet, somewhere deep within him, a spark of curiosity ignited. He wanted to know more. He wanted to understand Liara, the queen, and this planet that seemed alive in every sense. Hours passed, and eventually sleep claimed him. But even in dreams, Virelia's forests whispered, its crystal towers shimmered, and the queen's eyes seemed to watch him, always calculating, always assessing. When dawn arrived, the sun, or what humans might call a sun, rose over the floating city. Its light refracted through the crystalline towers, casting rainbows across the air. A guard arrived to escort Elias to the royal garden, where Princess Liara awaited. The garden was breathtaking. Rivers of liquid light flowed between plants that seemed to hum with energy. Flowers opened and closed in rhythmic patterns, responding to the touch of the wind. Aliens moved gracefully among the foliage, their movements precise, almost dance-like. And at the center, standing beneath a tree whose leaves glowed like embers, was Liara. She was tall, elegant, and carried herself with the dignity of someone who had endured great loss. Her hair shimmered like silver threads, and her eyes, striking and intelligent, met Elias with curiosity rather than fear or hostility. "Elias of Earth," she said, her voice soft but confident, "you have accepted what most would reject. I admire your courage and your pragmatism." Elias bowed awkwardly, unsure of the proper gesture. "Princess Liara," he replied, I do not know what to say." "This is unexpected for me." Liara's lips curved in a small, almost sad smile. "It is unexpected for me as well. I never imagined that a human would come to Virelia, much less enter my life in this way. Yet here we are. Perhaps there is value in the unexpected." They walked through the garden, moving past rivers of liquid light and bioluminescent flowers, their conversation tentative at first, then gradually more open. Elias learned that Liara was not merely a figurehead. She managed diplomacy, trade, and defense for her people. She had been widowed young, her spouse lost to a tragic accident during a space mission. Her life had been filled with duty and sorrow, leaving little room for personal happiness. Elias realized that the Queen's proposal was not just about marriage. It was about testing him, about seeing if a human could integrate into a world far beyond Earth's understanding. And more than that, perhaps the Queen was searching for someone who could help her daughter navigate the complexities of ruling a vast, alien kingdom. As the sun, or the equivalent of a sun, began to rise higher, bathing the garden in warm light, Elias felt a mixture of fear, awe, and determination. He had no choice but to accept the situation, but he also understood that his survival, and perhaps the future of this alien world, would depend on how he adapted, learned, and contributed. For the first time, Elias saw beyond captivity. He saw opportunity. He saw a chance to prove that humans, even in the most alien of worlds, could make a difference. And so, as he followed Liara through the glowing gardens of Virelia, Elias took his first steps toward an uncertain future, one where courage, intelligence, and the human spirit would be tested like never before. Little did he know, the days ahead would challenge him in ways he could never imagine, testing not only his survival skills but his understanding of trust, loyalty, and the meaning of freedom itself. The sun, or the glowing star that illuminated Virelia, rose slowly over the crystal. Towers bathing the floating city in soft, shifting colors. Elias followed the palace guard through halls that seemed to defy human architecture. The walls were made of translucent crystal, filled with light that pulsed gently as if the palace itself had a heartbeat. The corridors curved and twisted in ways that made his head spin. He had to remind himself constantly that gravity here was different. Even a small misstep could send him staggering. He was led to a large chamber near the center of the palace. Here, alien machines hummed quietly and screens floated in midair, displaying data Elias could not fully understand. Energy lines ran along the floor like glowing rivers, and small devices hovered silently, scanning everything. It was a place of knowledge, strategy, and planning. "You will learn much here," said one of the guards, a tall, silver-skinned alien with elongated limbs. "Princess Liara spends many hours in this chamber. You must observe and listen." Ilias nodded, though he had little idea what he was supposed to learn. Diplomacy and politics among humans were already difficult. Dealing with an alien kingdom seemed impossible. Still, he had accepted this strange fate, and now he had to find a way to survive it. Hours passed before Princess Liara entered the chamber. She moved with a quiet grace, her silver hair flowing behind her as she approached. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent, studied Ilias carefully. "Do you understand what this place is?" she asked. Ilias shook his head. "Not fully. It seems like a control room, but for what?" Liara's lips curved into a faint smile. "For everything. Our cities, our defenses, our communications. This room allows me to oversee our kingdom and respond quickly to threats. It is the heart of our power, and the responsibility I carry weighs heavily." Ilias listened, amazed. He had never imagined a single person could have such influence over a world. On Earth, governments were distributed, decisions slow and cumbersome. Here, one individual could monitor, analyze, and act in real time across an entire civilization. It was overwhelming. Liara continued, "You are here because you are human, and your kind possesses unique abilities. Creativity, adaptability, resilience, qualities that our species admires but often lacks in the way we think and act. Your perspective may be helpful." Ilias nodded slowly. He felt a mix of pride and pressure. To be useful, he would have to learn quickly, understand alien technology and customs, and gain trust, all while navigating a culture completely different from his own. Over the next few days, Ilias struggled to adjust. Every action seemed awkward. The way Virelians walked, spoke, and interacted was subtle and precise. Their language had layers of meaning that humans could rarely grasp on the first try. Their etiquette was complex, requiring him to bow, gesture, and speak at exact moments. One small mistake drew polite correction from the guards or Liara herself. Yet, amidst these challenges, Ilias began to notice Liara's own struggles. She carried herself with confidence, but he could see the fatigue in her eyes. Nights spent managing crises, days filled with endless meetings, and the weight of loss all marked her face. The death of her husband had left a scar deeper than anyone could see. Yet she had accepted her duty and moved forward, carrying the burdens of her people with courage. One evening, Ilias walked beside her in the palace gardens. The floating platforms were lit with soft light, and bioluminescent plants pulsed gently around them. Strange rivers of liquid light flowed beneath the platforms, reflecting in the silver-blue sky above. "Why did your mother offer me to you?" Ilias asked cautiously. "I do not understand your customs, and I certainly do not understand this arrangement." Liara looked at him, her expression calm but thoughtful. "It is not as simple as marriage, Ilias. My mother is wise. She sees threats in the galaxy, rival factions, rogue explorers, and dangers beyond our walls. She needed someone who could bring new ideas, someone adaptable, someone who could survive. You fit that description." Ilias swallowed. "So, I am a test." Liara's eyes softened slightly. "In a way, but not a test of loyalty or obedience. A test of ingenuity, courage, and adaptability. You have already passed one part by accepting what most would reject." For the first time, Ilias felt a sense of purpose beyond survival. He was not merely a prisoner or a pawn. He could contribute, and perhaps even change the course of this alien world. In the following days, Liara began teaching Ilias more about her people's technology. He learned to operate communication nodes, analyze energy grids, and read alien strategic patterns. At first, it was overwhelming. Virelian systems were sophisticated beyond human imagination. Screens floated in midair, displaying symbols and images that shifted constantly. Machines responded to thought patterns, adjusting themselves to meet the needs of their users. But Ilias' human creativity proved useful. Where algorithms failed, he tried unconventional solutions, applying simple logic, trial and error, and lateral thinking. Often his suggestions seemed laughably simple to the Virelians, but they worked. A machine that had jammed for hours responded instantly when Ilias rearranged components in a human pattern. A security protocol that had baffled Liara's advisors unlocked when Ilias approached it differently. Liara noticed. "You are different," she said one evening after Ilias had successfully stabilized a failing energy conduit. Your species approaches problems in ways we do not anticipate. That is valuable. Elias felt pride, but also humility. I am only doing what seems natural to me. But your technology, it is incredible. I could never have imagined such systems on Earth. Liara smiled faintly. And yet Earth's simplicity sometimes solves problems even we cannot. Their partnership grew slowly. Elias was no longer just a captive, he was a collaborator. They discussed ideas, strategies, and sometimes shared stories of Earth and Violia. Elias learned that Liara had a sharp mind, a sense of humor, and a courage that had been forged through hardship. She respected him, and he respected her. Yet tension remained. Court officials whispered in shadows, skeptical of the human's presence. They questioned the Queen's decision and worried that a foreigner could upset centuries of tradition. Elias felt their stares, heard their quiet murmurs, and knew that trust would take time, if it came at all. One afternoon, while exploring a lesser-used section of the palace, Elias stumbled upon a hidden archive. Holographic panels flickered as he touched them, revealing records of past rulers, alliances, and conflicts. He realized that Violia had faced threats before, rebellions, rival planets, and rogue factions. Many had been subdued, but the memory of their audacity lingered in palace records. Liara joined him shortly after. "You found the hidden archives," she said quietly. "Few humans, or even Violians, are allowed here. These records hold the history of our people, our mistakes, and our triumphs. You should study them. Knowledge is power." Elias spent hours reading, fascinated by the parallels between human history and Violia's. Kingdoms rose and fell, alliances shifted, and courage and ingenuity often determined the outcome. He began to see patterns, understanding not just the technology but the people, their values, fears, and hopes. Night fell and the floating city glowed like a constellation of colors. Elias and Liara stood on a balcony overlooking the palace, the wind carrying a soft hum from the rivers of light below. "You are learning quickly," Liara said, "faster than I expected." "I have to," Elias replied. "I want to survive and I want to help, but I must admit this world is overwhelming." Liara nodded. "It is, and yet it can be beautiful too if you learn to see it differently. Your perspective is refreshing, Elias. You remind me that strength is not only in technology or power, but in courage, adaptability, and hope." For the first time, Elias felt a sense of belonging. He was still an outsider, yes, but he was also making a difference. His mind worked differently from the Violians, and that difference was being recognized. It was the first spark of freedom he had felt, not freedom from captivity, but freedom to act, to think, and to contribute. Yet there were shadows. Unknown forces moved in the palace, whispering in corners, testing loyalty, and plotting for advantage. Elias knew that his journey had only just begun. Trust had to be earned, threats had to be faced, and alliances had to be forged. Every choice would carry weight, not just for him, but for Liara, her mother, and the entire kingdom. And so, Elias continued to walk beside Liara, through glowing gardens, humming chambers, and towers of shifting crystal. He was no longer just a human in a strange world. He was a partner, a learner, and perhaps, in time, something more. The days ahead would test his courage, intellect, and heart, and he was determined to prove that humans, even in alien worlds, could rise to challenges greater than any they had ever faced. The reluctant alliance between human and princess had begun, and the universe would never be the same again. The palace of Violia was a world of wonders, yet shadows lingered behind its beauty. Elias had grown accustomed to the glowing halls, the floating gardens, and the intricate networks of energy and information that pulsed throughout the city. He had begun to understand the rhythms of alien life, yet he sensed that all was not as serene as it seemed. It began one evening when he was reviewing energy flow charts in the royal archives. Liara had asked him to assist in analyzing the city's defense systems, an exercise to test his human perspective against the precision of Violian algorithms. As he adjusted the flow calculations, he noticed a pattern that did not fit. Some conduits were subtly rerouted, causing small inefficiencies in the energy grid. At first, he thought it was a simple error, a misalignment in the Violian systems. But the more he studied, the more he realized it was deliberate. "Liara," he said, summoning her with a hand gesture, "there's something here. These conduits, they're being tampered with, not by accident." Liara appeared silently, her robes flowing as she moved. She examined the data, her sharp eyes scanning the screens. "You are correct," she said quietly. I suspected as much. Our defenses have been probed, tested. Someone is studying us, planning something. Elias felt a chill. The palace was a marvel of engineering, a fortress of knowledge and power. Yet even here, danger had found a way in. Do we know who? He asked. Liara shook her head. Not yet, but there are whispers in the corridors. Factions within the palace are uneasy. Some may wish to challenge my mother's rule. Others may be working with forces beyond Violia. Elias realized then that the queen's offer had not been merely about marriage. It was about survival, strategy, and trust. He was now a piece in a game far larger than he had imagined. Over the next few days, Liara and Elias worked together in secret. They explored the palace archives, tracing anomalies in energy grids, security logs, and communications. The deeper they delved, the more complex the web became. Some disruptions seemed minor, almost harmless, but they hinted at a coordinated effort. Someone with knowledge of the palace's systems was attempting to weaken it from within. Why involve me? Elias asked one night as they pored over holographic schematics in a hidden chamber. Liara looked at him, her face serious. Because you think differently. Humans approach problems from angles we do not anticipate. Where my people see risk and follow protocol, you see opportunity. That perspective may be the key to stopping this threat before it is too late. Elias nodded, feeling a mixture of pride and anxiety. He had accepted captivity, then partnership, and now he was being trusted with secrets that could determine the fate of a civilization. The weight of responsibility pressed on him, yet he felt ready. Their investigations led them to a series of hidden corridors beneath the palace. These tunnels were older than the floating city itself, carved into the bedrock by Violia's ancestors. Energy lines hummed along the walls, some damaged, others glowing faintly as they transmitted information across the palace. It was in one of these corridors that Elias discovered a hidden terminal, partially destroyed but still active. Look at this, he said, brushing dust from the panel. Symbols flickered across the screen, messages in code, some automated, some clearly sent by a person. Elias' human mind worked quickly, interpreting patterns and identifying sequences that the Violians had overlooked. This is a communication network, he explained. Someone is sending instructions to agents inside the palace. Liara's eyes narrowed. Rogue elements, she said. They are trying to manipulate events. If they succeed, the entire kingdom could be at risk. Over the following weeks, Elias and Liara continued their secret investigations. They uncovered small but significant acts of sabotage, energy fluctuations, minor security breaches, and coded messages hidden in public records. Every discovery deepened the mystery and heightened the tension. One evening, as they returned from a hidden archive, they were confronted by a palace official, a tall Violian with eyes like molten silver. "Princess Liara," he said, bowing. "You and your companions seem to be spending an unusual amount of time in restricted areas. Are you aware that your actions could be misinterpreted?" Liara's expression remained calm, but Elias sensed the undercurrent of danger. "We are addressing potential security threats," she replied. "The palace may have vulnerabilities that need attention." The official's eyes flicked to Elias. "And you, human, do you understand the gravity of these claims?" Elias straightened, meeting the gaze without fear. "I do," he said, "but I also understand that ignoring these signs could be far more dangerous than acting upon them. I'm here to help, not to harm." The official studied him for a long moment before bowing and stepping aside. Elias exhaled quietly. Trust in the palace was fragile. One misstep could unravel everything. Despite the tension, Elias and Liara's bond grew stronger. Working together in secrecy required collaboration, understanding, and mutual respect. They began to anticipate each other's thoughts, their ideas blending in a way that enhanced both human and Violian strengths. Elias admired Liara's intelligence, her calm in the face of danger, and her unwavering sense of duty. Liara, in turn, respected Elias' ingenuity, courage, and willingness to act even in uncertainty. Their investigations eventually led to the discovery of a hidden laboratory beneath the city. The lab was abandoned, but its equipment was still functional. Strange devices hummed with energy, and holographic maps projected the surrounding region of space. It was clear that this place had been used for secret research, possibly related to weapons or energy manipulation. "Someone was experimenting here," Elias said, scanning the equipment. "And judging by the activity logs, it was recent. Liara frowned. We must find out who. If this is connected to the sabotage in the palace, it could be far more serious than we imagined. Elias and Liara began to piece together the puzzle. Messages from the hidden terminal indicated a faction within Vyrlia that disagreed with the Queen's policies. They sought to seize control, using advanced technology and strategic manipulation. The rogue faction was clever, patient, and well-informed, but they had not anticipated a human's perspective. Using their combined knowledge, Elias and Liara devised a plan to intercept communications, monitor suspicious activity, and identify key players in the conspiracy. It was dangerous work. One mistake could reveal their investigation and put them both at risk. Yet they pressed on, driven by necessity and the growing respect they had for each other. One night, as they reviewed a series of intercepted messages, Elias noticed a recurring symbol. It was subtle, barely visible in the streams of data, but his human eyes caught it. "Liara," he said, pointing to the screen, "look at this." This symbol appears every time there is a sabotage attempt. It could be a signature or a marker for the rogue faction. Liara studied it closely. "You are correct," she said. "This symbol, it has not been seen in the palace for generations. It represents a secret group that opposes the Queen's rule. They operate in the shadows, moving unseen and unnoticed. If we are to protect the kingdom, we must find them before they act." The realization sent a chill through Elias. They were not dealing with ordinary dissent. This was a calculated, organized threat, one that could destroy the very foundation of Vyrlia's government if left unchecked. Over the following days, Elias applied human ingenuity to Vyrlian systems. He created algorithms to trace communication patterns, developed methods to detect hidden energy fluctuations, and suggested strategies to anticipate sabotage. Liara guided him, offering insight into the palace's history, technology, and politics. Together, they formed a team that was more than the sum of its parts. Their partnership did not go unnoticed. Loyal palace officials began to take interest, observing how the human and princess worked in harmony. Some were wary, others impressed, and a few quietly offered their support. Slowly, Elias began to understand that trust could be built through competence, courage, and transparency, even in a world so alien to him. One evening, after a long day of analysis and strategy, Elias and Liara walked in the floating gardens. The soft glow of the bioluminescent plants reflected in their eyes. "You are becoming invaluable," Liara said softly. "Not because you are human, but because you see possibilities that my people cannot. Your presence changes things." Elias felt a mixture of pride and humility. "I am only doing what I can," he replied, "but I am learning. And I am beginning to understand your people, your world, and your responsibilities." Liara nodded. "And that understanding may be the key to our survival. The rogue faction will not wait. Every day, every hour counts. We must act wisely, but also decisively." As they continued walking, Elias realized that the challenges ahead were greater than anything he had faced. Yet he also realized that he was no longer a mere captive. He was a partner, a strategist, and perhaps even a protector. The shadows in the palace were growing, and the secrets of Vyrlia were dangerous. But with Liara by his side, and with his human perspective guiding their actions, Elias felt ready to face whatever came next. For the first time, he understood that freedom was not just a matter of leaving the palace. It was about finding the courage to act, the wisdom to discern truth from deception, and the determination to protect those who trusted him. And so, Elias and Liara prepared to confront the hidden threats within Vyrlia, knowing that the choices they made in the shadows could shape the fate of an entire civilization. The sun, or the bright energy of Vyrlia's twin stars, was just beginning to climb above the horizon when alarms echoed through the palace. Elias was in the control chamber reviewing energy patterns alongside Liara when the first warning lights flashed red. "They're attacking," Liara said, her voice calm but firm. "The rogue faction has begun. We knew it would come to this." Elias' pulse quickened. They had prepared for months, studying sabotage, tracing hidden messages, uncovering secret devices, but nothing could completely prepare them for a full assault. The palace, magnificent though it was under threat. And now, humans and Vyrlians alike would be tested. "Where do we start?" Elias asked, scanning the holographic maps. Liara pointed to key locations. "We must secure the city's energy cores first. If they fall, the palace and the floating districts could collapse. Second, we need to protect the Queen and loyal citizens. And finally, we must neutralize the rogue faction before they escape into space. Elias nodded. Strategy and action had always been his strengths, and now he would need them more than ever. Together, he and Liara coordinated the palace defenses. Violian guards moved in precise formations, deploying drones and energy shields. Yet it was Elias' human ingenuity that proved decisive. He quickly identified weaknesses in the attackers' patterns, predictable routes, blind spots in the palace sensors, and suggested ways to reinforce defenses. Liara listened carefully. "Your ideas are unconventional," she said, "but they could save many lives." The first wave of the rogue faction struck near the lower districts of the floating city. Ships cloaked in darkness attempted to bypass defenses, moving swiftly toward the palace. Energy beams flashed, shields shimmered, and alarms blared. Elias and Liara coordinated from the control chamber, adjusting energy barriers, deploying countermeasures, and predicting enemy maneuvers. "Use the gravity tunnels," Elias suggested. "They'll assume we'll guard the main bridges, but the tunnels provide a shortcut." "We can trap them there." Liara nodded and sent orders to the guards. Within minutes, the rogue ships were funneled into the tunnels, where energy nets immobilized them. Alarms and red lights filled the city, but the first threat had been contained. Elias allowed himself a brief breath. This was no longer a simulation. This was real, and lives hung in the balance. The rogue faction did not stop. Smaller teams infiltrated the palace itself, attempting to sabotage energy nodes and disable security systems. Elias joined Liara on the palace battlements, where they could oversee the floating gardens and the glowing rivers of light below. "Stay close," Liara said. "We must move fast. They will target the Queen first if they can." Elias nodded. He drew his human-designed multi-tool, a device capable of hacking, scanning, and analyzing alien tech. It was small but effective, a combination of ingenuity and practicality. The first intruder appeared, a tall Violian, but with modifications that marked him as part of the rogue faction. Elias reacted instinctively, intercepting the energy pulse meant to disrupt the palace sensors. He recalibrated it with his tool, redirecting the pulse harmlessly into the sky. Liara moved with him, her presence calm and confident. Together, they navigated the palace corridors, reinforcing security nodes, intercepting attackers, and protecting citizens who had fled to safer chambers. "You're fast," Liara said, as they moved from one energy terminal to another. "Your kind speed and adaptability, it is remarkable." Elias smiled briefly, though he remained focused. "And your leadership is incredible. I would be lost without your guidance." The battle escalated. Rogue agents attempted to breach the Queen's private chambers, but Elias and Liara were already there. With precise coordination, they activated defensive fields and immobilized the intruders using non-lethal energy restraints. Each action required split-second decisions, blending human intuition and Violian technology. As they secured the Queen's chambers, they found her calm, observing the unfolding events with steady eyes. "You have done well," she said to Elias. "Not many humans could act with such clarity under pressure. You are proving your worth." Elias felt a mix of pride and responsibility. This was more than survival, it was leadership, courage, and ingenuity in action. He realized that freedom was not simply a matter of leaving the palace. It was earned through action, through choices that affected many lives. The rogue faction, realizing their initial attacks were failing, escalated. They deployed a specialized energy disruptor, a device capable of destabilizing entire city blocks. The palace trembled as energy conduits flashed and pulsed erratically. "We need to shut that down," Liara said, her voice tense. "It could destroy the city." Elias examined the device's energy signature. "I can redirect it," he said, "but I'll need access to the main conduit right through the heart of their forces." Liara looked at him, assessing the risk. "You may not have a choice. I will cover you. Together we can stop it." Elias nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility, but also the strength of their partnership. They moved swiftly, blending human agility with Violian precision. Elias recalibrated the disruptor while Liara defended the approach from rogue attackers. The device hummed dangerously, its energy unstable. One wrong move could destroy part of the city. Elias took a deep breath, focusing. He rewired the conduits, rerouting the energy safely into the palace's shield systems. Sparks flew, lights flickered, but the device stabilized. "We did it," Elias said, allowing himself a brief smile. Liara nodded, her eyes reflecting relief and admiration. "You are more than a visitor, Elias. You are a protector, a strategist, and perhaps in time more." The rogue faction, realizing their plan had failed, began retreating. Many were captured, while others fled into hidden tunnels beneath the city. The palace was damaged but intact, its citizens safe thanks to the combined efforts of human ingenuity and Virelian precision. After the battle, Elias and Liara stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The floating towers glowed softly, their lights reflecting in the rivers of liquid energy below. Citizens emerged from safe zones, cheering quietly as the danger passed. "You have proven yourself today," Liara said, her voice calm but warm. "Not just as a human, but as someone who understands the value of courage, intelligence, and cooperation. You are no longer just a guest in our world. You are part of it." Elias looked at the city, feeling a mixture of exhaustion, relief, and pride. I never imagined I would do something like this. On Earth, I was just one person. Here, I feel like I've made a real difference." Liara smiled. "And you have." Humans possess qualities that are rare even among the stars: creativity, resilience, and empathy. Today, you demonstrated all of them. Today, you helped save a civilization. Elias realized that freedom was no longer simply the ability to leave the palace. Freedom was the ability to act, to make choices, and to protect those who could not protect themselves. It was courage in the face of danger, clarity in the midst of chaos, and the determination to stand with allies even when the odds seemed impossible. Over the next few days, the palace began repairs. Elias worked alongside engineers and strategists, applying human techniques to improve defenses and prevent future attacks. His perspective, once foreign, was now valued and respected. Citizens began to recognize him, not just as Liara's companion, but as a contributor to the safety and progress of their world. Despite the victory, Elias and Liara knew that challenges remained. The rogue faction was not destroyed, only delayed. Hidden threats lingered in the shadows, waiting for another opportunity. And the universe beyond Virelia's skies held dangers that no palace, no matter how fortified, could fully anticipate. Yet, amidst the uncertainty, Elias felt a sense of belonging. He was no longer a captive, no longer merely a human far from home. He was a partner, a protector, and a vital part of Virelia's future. His choices mattered, his actions had weight, his courage had impact. One evening, as they walked through the repaired gardens, Elias turned to Liara. "I never expected my life to take this path," he said quietly. "Yet, I feel like I'm exactly where I am meant to be." Liara looked at him, her expression thoughtful. "Life often takes us to places we never imagined. Sometimes, the choices we fear the most lead to the greatest opportunities. You have embraced that, Elias, and for that, I am grateful." Elias realized that the trials they had faced were only the beginning. The rogue faction was out there, the universe was vast, and countless challenges awaited. But he also knew that with courage, ingenuity, and the support of allies like Liara, he could face whatever came next. And so, as the twin stars of Virelia set below the horizon, casting long shadows across the floating city, Elias understood a truth he had only begun to grasp. True freedom was not merely escape. It was the ability to stand, to act, and to protect those who relied on him, even in the most alien of worlds. The trials of choice had been endured, the rogue faction had been confronted, and the palace had survived. But the path ahead was still uncertain. And Elias, the human who had once been a captive, was ready to meet that uncertainty with courage, intelligence, and determination. The city of Virelia lay quiet in the early hours of the twin stars' rise. The glow from the floating towers reflected softly on the rivers of liquid light that ran beneath the platforms. After the recent attack by the rogue faction, the palace was still repairing damage, but a sense of calm had returned, tentative yet tangible. Elias stood at the balcony of the Queen's palace overlooking the city below. The view had become familiar over the weeks he had spent here, yet it still inspired awe. The intricate towers, the glowing energy conduits, the soft hum of life, it was unlike anything on Earth. And now he felt that he belonged here not just as a visitor but as someone who could make a difference. Liara approached quietly. "You seem lost in thought," she said. Her voice was soft, almost comforting. Elias turned to her and smiled faintly. I was thinking about how much has changed, how much I've changed. I came here as a captive, unsure of what to do. Now I feel like I'm part of something greater than myself. Liara nodded. You are. You've proven that humans can adapt, think creatively, and act bravely, even in worlds far from your own. Your choices have saved lives, protected the city, and even prevented the rogue faction from gaining power. Elias felt a warmth of pride, but it was mingled with humility. I couldn't have done it without you, he said. Your guidance, your trust, it made all the difference. Liara's gaze softened. We work together, that is the true strength of this partnership. Courage alone is not enough. Intelligence, cooperation, and trust, those are what make civilizations survive and thrive. For the first time, Elias allowed himself to reflect fully on the journey that had brought him here. The initial capture, the Queen's impossible choice, the long hours of learning alien systems, the constant vigilance against sabotage, all of it had tested him in ways he had never imagined. And through it, he had discovered the qualities that humans were capable of: ingenuity, courage, and resilience. The peaceful morning was shattered by a sudden alert. Energy readings indicated movement in the hidden tunnels beneath the city. Elias and Liara exchanged a glance. The rogue faction had not given up. They were attempting one last desperate attack. Are you ready? Liara asked, her hand briefly brushing his. There was no question of hesitation. Her tone was calm, resolute. Elias nodded. We face this together. They moved swiftly through the palace corridors, coordinating with guards and engineers to seal off access points while monitoring the tunnels. The rogue faction had brought with them a new device, something powerful enough to destabilize several floating districts simultaneously. It hummed with dangerous energy, and the palace trembled as alarms warned of its activation. This is worse than before, Elias said. If it goes off, we could lose the city. Liara's eyes were steady. Then we stop it, now. Elias analyzed the energy signature, mapping out a path to redirect the flow safely. He realized that brute force alone would not work. Precision and understanding of the alien systems were essential. Using his human perspective, he devised a plan to neutralize the device while minimizing risk to the city. Together, Elias and Liara moved into the tunnels. Shadows clung to the walls, and the hum of the rogue device vibrated through the floor. Intruders attempted to intercept them, but Elias' quick thinking allowed him to reroute energy fields, temporarily immobilizing attackers while Liara used her combat training to subdue them. You move fast, Liara said, as they ducked under a shifting energy barrier. And you move with precision, Elias replied. We make a good team. The rogue device came into view, a complex sphere of glowing metal, wires, and energy pulses. It pulsed like a heartbeat, threatening destruction. Elias studied the energy flows, tracing the sequence needed to deactivate it. Hand me the tool, he said to Liara. She handed him the multi-tool he had modified for alien tech. With careful precision, he interfaced with the device, rerouting energy conduits and neutralizing unstable pulses. Sparks flew, lights flickered, and a low hum filled the air, but gradually the device powered down safely. Liara exhaled, her shoulders relaxing slightly. You did it, she said. The city is safe. Elias allowed himself a small smile. We did it together. The rogue faction, realizing their plan had failed again, attempted to flee. Elias and Liara pursued, coordinating with the palace guards to intercept the intruders before they could escape. The chase led them through the hidden corridors and finally into a secure holding area where the remaining members of the rogue faction were captured without further violence. Elias felt a rush of relief. The city was secure, the rogue faction neutralized, and the palace and its citizens had survived the trials. Back in the palace gardens, Elias and Liara watched the sunrise over the floating towers. The rivers of light reflected the stars in the sky, and the city seemed calm, peaceful, and alive once more. You've changed everything, Liara said softly. Not just by stopping the attacks, but by showing what humans can bring to this world. Courage, intelligence, empathy, all of it matters. Elias nodded. I've learned a lot here, about your people, your technology, and myself. I realize now that freedom is not simply leaving a place. It's the ability to act, to make choices, and to protect those who rely on you. Liara looked at him, her eyes reflecting admiration and warmth. And you've proven that humans can do more than survive. You can thrive, inspire, and lead. Perhaps that is why my mother offered this opportunity to you. Elias thought of the queen, of the impossible choice he had faced, and of the journey that had brought him here. He had entered Vyrlia as a captive, unsure, afraid. Now he stood as a trusted partner, a protector, and someone whose actions had shaped the fate of an entire civilization. "I never imagined I would find purpose so far from Earth," Elias said, "but I feel like this is where I am meant to be." Liara reached out, placing a hand on his arm. "Then stay, not as a captive, not out of obligation, but because you choose to. Together we can build something greater than either of us alone." Elias looked into her eyes and saw not just trust, but hope. He realized that the Queen's proposal, once a choice he had feared, had become an opportunity to redefine freedom, responsibility, and purpose. "I choose to stay," he said firmly. "Not because I have to, but because I want to. I want to help to protect and to be part of this world." Liara smiled, and for the first time, Elias felt truly at peace. They had faced danger, uncovered secrets, confronted the rogue faction, and emerged victorious, not through raw power, but through ingenuity, courage, and cooperation. In the weeks that followed, Elias fully integrated into the life of Vyrlia. He continued to work alongside Liara, strengthening defenses, improving systems, and teaching new methods of problem-solving. His human perspective proved invaluable, earning him the respect of citizens, officials, and even skeptics who had once doubted his presence. Liara and Elias also began to understand each other on a deeper level. Their partnership evolved into mutual respect, friendship, and a bond built on shared challenges and triumphs. They discovered joy in collaboration, laughter in small moments, and comfort in knowing they could rely on each other in any situation. The Queen, observing their progress, nodded with approval. "You have surpassed my expectations," she said to Elias one day. "Humans are indeed remarkable. You have not only survived, but have strengthened our kingdom. Your ingenuity, courage, and heart have made you part of Vyrlia's story." Elias felt a warmth of pride and gratitude. He had once feared captivity, the unknown, and the impossible choice before him. Now he understood that every trial had prepared him for this moment. Freedom, he realized, was not merely the absence of confinement. It was the ability to act with purpose, to choose courage over fear, and to stand for what mattered, even in a world far beyond his own. One evening, Elias and Liara walked through the palace gardens, now fully restored. The glowing plants reflected their steps, the rivers of light shimmered gently, and the floating towers sparkled in the distance. "Do you ever miss Earth?" Liara asked quietly. Elias thought for a moment. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but I also know that I've found a place where I can make a real difference, where my choices, my actions, and even my very presence matter." Liara nodded. "Then you are truly free. Not just from captivity, but free to live, to act, and to shape your destiny." Elias smiled. "And perhaps even help shape yours as well," he said softly. The stars above Vyrlia twinkled, reflecting in the rivers of light below. The city was safe, the rogue faction defeated, and a new era of cooperation and innovation was beginning. Humans and Vyrlians, working together, had proven that courage, intelligence, and empathy could overcome even the greatest challenges. Elias took a deep breath, feeling the energy of the world around him. He had started as a captive, facing a choice that seemed impossible. Now he was a partner, a protector, and a symbol of what humans could achieve, even in alien worlds. Freedom had been redefined, not as the ability to leave, but as the courage to act, the wisdom to choose, and the strength to protect. And as Elias and Liara stood together, watching the twin stars rise, he knew that the story of Vyrlia and humanity's place within it was only just beginning.